Greetings teacher and my fellow classmates. Welcome to Group 4's presentation. And our group members are Song Che, Kim Hong, Petra, Smaret, and me, Narong. For our team, we are responsible for the story that was written by Roald, and of course it's The Hitchhiker, and he is the content of our group. The first, which is the summary, will be presented by me. The second one will be the second and third will be presented by Kim Hong. The fourth will be presented by Samarit. Fifth will be presented by Petra, and the last person to deliver the speech is Song Che. Before anything else, let me take a moment to tell you guys who the hitchhiker is. So the hitchhiker is someone who travels by getting free rides in someone else's vehicle. So now let me begin the summary. When a man was driving in his BMW to London, he spotted a hitchhiker standing beside the road, and he asked the hitchhiker to jump in because he knew how it feels to be standing beside the road watching the cars go by. And while they are on the way, they had a long conversation about what they did for a living, and unexpectedly the hitchhiker doubted and questioned the man about the speed of his car, and the man proudly said that she can run 129 miles per hour, but the hitchhiker didn't seem to believe what he said, and eventually he was like, I bet she won't do it. And due to that reaction, the man wanted to prove the hitchhiker wrong, and so he drove to the highway to begin the challenge. After a few seconds, the hitchhiker shouted, 100, 110, 120. The hitchhiker was having so much fun in the car, and he was like, go on man, get him up to 129. But immediately after the cheer, there was a scream, well, stop! The police jumped from his motorcycle and stopped them. But you know what shocked them the most? It's the fact that they were doing 120. So that means the police is doing more than that, probably 130. They were impressed despite the situation, and the police then noted down their name, their address, and the car's numbers. But he was a bit of a bully. He kept threatening that the man would not be able to drive for a long time, and that he will have to go to jail for several years. After that, the police left both of them with a ticket for a take-up later on, and while they were on their way, they began talking about their career again. But this time the hitchhiker announced that he is the fingersmith. He then took out the book that was previously belonged to the police, and the man was crying with joy, expressing his gratitude toward the hitchhiker. And to celebrate that, they pulled off the road and burned the book. And that is how the story ends. So I will pass the role to Kim Hong.
Hello teacher and hello everyone, my name is Kim Hong and I'm going to be talking about the conflicts and the solution as well as the characterization of the story The Hitchhiker. So first let's take a look at the conflicts and the solutions of the story. There are 4 conflicts in the story, 5 including the climax. And the first conflict of the story is when the rotty-faced man wanted a ride and did a hitchhiking. And the solution to that conflict or problem is that a car owner offered him a ride. And the second conflict of the story is when the hitchhiker asked the car owner to guess his career. And the solution to that problem is that the hitchhiker gave the car owner hints by doing pickpocket to him. Like at first he pickpocketed the car owner's shoelace, and then his other belongings such as his keys, his notes or his watch and his ring and so on, stuff like that. And the third conflict of the story, which is the main conflict one, is when the hitchhiker challenged the car owner to drive at the speed of 129 miles per hour. And the solution to that conflict is that the car owner accepted the challenge and started to speed. And the fourth conflict of the story is when the police asked for the evidence if the name and the address that the hitchhiker had given to him was a true one. And the solution to that is that the hitchhiker gave him his license as the evidence. And moving on to the climax of the story, which is when they were both caught by the police due to the speeding. And the solution to that is that the hitchhiker stole the police notebooks and then burned them later. And that's all for the conflict and solution part. Let's take a look at the characterization part. There are 3 characters in total in the story The Hitchhiker, which include the car owner, the hitchhiker, who are the 2 main characters in the story, and the policeman, who is a small character. And let's take a look at each characterization of each character. First is the car owner. The car owner, he was traveling to London to get his wife's pearl ring fixed because one of the pearls was missing. And he was a writer, he was successful and rich, he was a kind-hearted and open-minded character. And he was also a very understanding and honest man. But he was not very knowledgeable about the current trends, as in the example on page 94, line 77, when they were both caught by the police, and the car owner said that, "I didn't know the police motorcycles could go as fast as that." And that indicates that he was not very knowledgeable about the current trends. And besides that, he was also a pretty careless character, as he accepted the challenge to drive at a full speed of 129 miles per hour without thinking of the consequences. And let's move on to another character, which is the hitchhiker. So his name was Michael Fish. His appearance in the story was quite unusual and unique, as the author described him that he had a rotty face with gray teeth, quick clever eyes, and pointed ears. When his career was later revealed in the story that he was a fingersmith, he was good at reading people and cunning, and he was quite judgmental in careers-wise, as for example in the book on page 97, line 220, he insults a piano player that, "My job is 100 times more difficult than playing the piano. Any verb can learn to do that. There's teaching little kids learning to play the piano in almost any house you go into these days." And besides his judgment in careers-wise, he was also quite a thoughtful character, as he revealed to the car owner later that he was a fingersmith and that he stole money from people. But he also clarified that to the car owner on page 99, line 298, that "But don't get me wrong, Governor. I never take nothing from a loser, nor from poor people neither. I only go after them as can afford it, the winner and the rich. That showed that he was quite thoughtful. And he was, unlike the car owner, he was, the hitchhiker was very knowledgeable about the current trends, as he told the car owner the make of the motorcycle of the police, and he also described the origins of some belonging of the car owner, like for example on page 99 line 265 he described the origin of the watch as a car owner, that it was a superior quality, 18 karat gold, easy to sell too. And by the language that the hitchhiker was using, such as governor, instead of her, or who instead of who, we could infer that he was not from London, but he was maybe from the countryside. And let's move on to the last character of the story, who is the policeman. So the policeman, he was a fat man with a shoot belly, enormous thighs, and a smoldering red face, wild cheeks, and he was quite unprofessional and rude. And besides that, he was also very suspicious, as for example in the book on page 96, line 257 to line 157 to 158, when the hitchhiker asked him what he have done wrong, and the police answered that, "I don't like your face, that's all, and we might have a picture of it somewhere in our files." And besides his negative traits, he also have his positive trait, which is he was quite a careful policeman. For example, on page 95, line 118, the car owner narrated that before the policeman handed him the speeding ticket, he checked all the information had come through clearly on his own carbon copy, and then replaced the book in his pocket and fastened the button. And later on in the story, he also said the policeman buttoned up his pocket after putting the notebook that he used to write the information of the hitchhiker. And that completes all of my part. In the next part, we'll be covering by Samarit. She's going to talk about literary devices. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Kim Hong. Now let's continue to literary element part. But before I continue to the part, I would like to say hello, my beautiful teacher, and also my beloved classmates. So now let's go to the part together. The situational irony. The situational irony in the story is when the police shot, he catch two men in his hand. That's why I call this is a situational irony. Is the police has stopped the driver while he was driving, and then ask their name, their address, and also look at their driver license and their passport also. So the police shot, he catch two men. But in the first, after the police left, the hitchhiker has already stolen the police notebook. So the police cannot be catch them. That's why I call this is the situational irony. For the sarcasm, you can have a look at line 94 that police talk to the driver. Perhaps there's a woman in bed having a baby and you are rushing her to hospital. Is that it? So for that part, it is called a sarcasm because the police said the betrayal to the driver. And also line 95 also called a sarcasm. Or perhaps your house is on fire and you are dusting home to rescue the family from upstairs. So this is also called a sarcasm because the police also said the betrayal to the driver also. So let's move to the simile.
So for the simile, you can have a look at line 33. He was a small ready-faced man with great teeth. This is called a symbolism because it's used for the specific object or image to represent abstract ideas also. So for the imagery, you can have a look at line 96. His voice was dangerously soft and mocking. And let's move to simile part. For the simile part, you can have a look at line 33. His eyes were dark and quick clever like red face, and his ear was slightly pointed at the top. This is called a simile because the meaning of simile is when we compare a thing that use the word earth, look, or like, and yes, and also the line 23 also has as look mean as the devil. This is also a simile. And line 219, that looks more like the fingers of the brand Sugan or a watermark. This is also called a simile. Yeah, I think that's all for my part about the literary element. Now let's continue to the next part. Let's talk about challenge and difficult in reading the story that we presented by Supetra. So that's all for my part. Thank you everyone. Bye bye.
Good morning, teacher, and hello, my fellow classmates. Today is such a great pleasure for me to be sitting in front of you and typing the video of me, clarifying the part that I have been responsible for and I have been researching for a very long time, which is the challenge or the difficulty of reading the story in the textbook. So you might listen to the previous presenter explaining their part already, and I hope that their explanation will enrich your knowledge and fulfill your curiosity that you have been sticking for. So now it's time for me to clarify my part as well. So without further any delay, I would like to get to my point real quick. So first of all, the challenge or difficulty that I have faced after I read the story is vocabulary. I cannot deny that every writer has their own perspective of detecting something to express their feeling or understanding to the readers. But in this story, I find it very interesting regarding of the word that the writer has used, because many of those words I have never heard or never seen before. It is very impressive for me. So when I read the story, I found a new word, so I decided to check it up in the dictionary. So when I got the meaning of that word, and I came back to continuing my reading, but I forgot what I have read. So this is the problem for me. So in order to overcome this problem, I would like to recommend you to read the definition of the word that have been written in below the story, because it will be more helpful for you to catch up the storyline in the story without any interruption, and will make you more concentration on the story without any checking the difficult word. So I think this is all for me, and the next presenter will present the rest of the point. So thank you everyone for paying attention for my point. Thank you.
Good morning, teacher, and greeting everyone. As for the last part of our presentation, we'll be taking a look at the last 2 points, which will be about the useful ideas as well as all the value that we can get from standard text. So first off is hidden messages and useful ideas that can be drawn from the text. After reading and analyzing the text, I managed to find 2 useful hidden messages, one of which was looks can be deceiving. Clothes do not define what people actually are. Just because someone has a shady appearance, it doesn't mean that person is someone who has actually committed a crime before. We cannot see through people's intentions and their characteristics based on their appearance alone. A great example of this would be Michael Fish, who was a hitchhiker in the story. Despite dressing poorly and having a face structure like a rat, he was actually a nice guy who has helped the car owner getting out of his fine for speeding. Another useful idea that I found was that you should treat people like how we like to be treated. Giving a treatment to someone is always a good thing, but there is a boundary that we should not cross. Our treatment toward others always comes with a limit. Sometimes it would be best if we were to give them less treatment, since too much treatment can make people feel uncomfortable. In some situations, it would be ideal if we were to ask them a few work questions rather than tackling them with the chain questions of one after another. This situation can also be found in the story as well. When the car owner started asking Michael Fish about his career, he decided to stop it at there, since Michael wasn't answering. He realized that if he were in Michael's place, he would also feel uncomfortable when someone started asking him one question after another, which is what he did to Michael. So he decided to stop pressing on the matter anymore, since that is not how he liked to be treated either. So that is the end for the useful idea. So for the next main point, which will be about the other value that we can gain from studying the text. Don't judge someone based on their appearance. Don't judge someone based on their look is the useful idea that I got from studying the text. We shouldn't be too hasty in judging someone, much more if we were to judge them based on their appearance alone. We should know that one's look cannot define one's intention, since all their looks can be deceiving. With all that said, I started to realize and care less about one's appearance, since their looks doesn't give them much credit for what they are actually for. In conclusion, Hitchhiker is without doubt a great story for literature studying. After learning the text, we can get many values from it as it enhances our understanding of literature, such as the ability to interpret and summarize the story, the ability to skim and spot on the different conflicts that have been presented in the story, the ability to understand the irony as well as differentiate the characteristics of each character, and the ability to see the hidden message as well as analyzing the difficulties in reading the text. So this is the end of our group presentation, and thank you.